Your source for all things Texas Tech. This is the Ask Level podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, what's happening? Welcome into another episode of the Ask Level podcast, episode number 48. Alongside Chris Level, I'm Chois Woodman. This podcast powered by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
Level, first time since the year I was born, 1990, that Texas Tech has started off a season 0-2. Now, you face two good football teams, but come up short 2 weeks in a row. Fan base is feeling it. I know they're feeling it inside the locker room. Rough one. But at the same time, you went up against a really good football team on Saturday night in the Oregon Ducks, and they outlasted you. They outplayed you down the stretch. And Texas Tech loses 38-30. And with all the preseason hype, you're now staring down the barrel of an 0-2 start, and not how many people envisioned this football season getting underway.
Yeah, no, I thought, in a worst case scenario, I thought all summer, like, okay, a 1-1 start was, very possible,
Sure.
just because of how good that Oregon is and is supposed to be. And as we saw was, and I think if you go back to the week before, if you beat Wyoming and you drop it the way you did against Oregon, then I think maybe it's a little more, I don't know, not tolerable is the right, but again, people want to win. They don't, I thought the environment, the crowd, the atmosphere was great. I thought you played really hard and well at times, but nobody cares because you just want the result. And I understand that. I want the result too. And I know all those guys that are over there, player, coach, whatever, that's all that really matters. And so it just you can't make some of the mistakes though and beat a team like that and give them extra opportunities. And I think Joey would be the first one to tell you there's some decisions he made that just didn't end up working, that I don't know if he would have done it over again, but I mean, he took the blame, and he kind of pointed to him and his staff, and like we've got to be better. And after it was over, so yeah, it's just there was a lot of haymakers thrown in that game versus Oregon, and I thought when you were down 5 at half and then you're up 9. With 6 to go in the third, you're up 27-18. I thought, boy, you're in a pretty good spot. And that's kind of the way that I guess I'll remember it, is that you kind of got up by 9 with what would that be? 21 minutes left to go in the game, and just couldn't quite figure out a way to close it. But again, you gave Oregon a few chances and extra chances and all that, and it's just they're a handful to deal with. You're going to see them again next year, but losing sucks, man. That's just all there is to it. I certainly get a lot of the frustration. I certainly because people want to win, and there was. I think obviously the turnovers, and we can break those down. Like, obviously Shough has 3 interceptions. He had a fumble. I think that he basically said the one that he was kind of intending, what we thought for Jerron Bradley, was actually intended for Jordan Brown. He took the blame for that one. His last pick of the game was a Hail Mary, and then obviously the pick 6, that's maybe you got to take a sack, throw it away. He's trying to make a play. There's not much time left in the game. And then the one fumble he had, he just had 4 people bearing down on him, it seemed. And but those were his turnovers, and that's what gets attached to his stat line. And then you couldn't create any your own at all, other than you stopped them on a quarterback sneak on downs. Because technically, if you know the way you want to look at it, it's actually 5 turnovers to 1, because each team stopped the opposition on a 4th down stop, which is again by the very definition a turnover on downs. That doesn't show up in the stat sheet like that, but yeah, that's you're -4 in that category, and in some ways, it's shocking that the game was as close as it was because of that. I thought we'll forget about this, but I thought special teams had a really good night. Yes, Gino Garcia missed a long field goal to end the half, but he made a 45-yarder. But I thought you had a big time punt return by Miles Price at one point. That was the series where you'd set yourself up, and then Shough would end up fumbling after he got blitzed. But you also had a blocked punt. I thought those kinds of things will get kind of forgotten about a bit. Bucky Irving, we knew, he's just a handful. The running back, he just kind of bounces off you like a pinball. I mean, and he was a handful. I thought you, for the most part, other than the one big play, you contained Troy Franklin a bit, and I thought that was a positive. But I mean, Bo Nix is good, man. He didn't really make any mistakes, and I think it was a 3rd and 11 that he just kind of got flushed and he squirted out of there and obviously converted on a 1st down. That was about 3 minutes left to go in the 3rd. That drive would continue into the 4th, and they would end up scoring on, I think, a 3-yard touchdown run by Bucky Irving. But I thought that was kind of a key play in that game when 3rd and 11, and he's able just to scramble and convert the 1st down. And I thought, because you had him, and then he just like, how did he get out of there? And but yeah, I thought credit to Bo Nix and Oregon. They didn't make a lot of the mistakes, but I think they also kind of created some of their own luck too, because their defensive line played better than yours. You couldn't really. I think Shough felt a lot of pressure at times. I think his run game stuff was awesome. I think that they did that a lot. It's a gamble when you do that. Putting him in harm's way, he survived it. And I thought, if you don't have a lot of that, you may have gotten blown out in this game, because their front 7 was going to be difficult to run on in a traditional sense. And I thought they felt like that was a bit of an advantage, and they exploited it and took it. But it's a gamble when you do that. And, so I just, it just, so much fun at times in that game, and then just ultimately, though, the result doesn't go your way. So
there's so many things you can point to. We were sitting here last week.
And I will say this too, Woodman. Sorry interrupting.
No, you're good.
I thought one of the concerns was Ben Roberts. He may have played as good as anybody on defense last night. Like, stat line aside, which his stat line is just. That's a redshirt freshman that's going to be really, really good at football around here for a while. And I thought Brendan Jordan played well too, because you were missing a lot of guys on defense. That would get worse as the night would go along, with some key names at the end of the game, Joseph Adedire and Tyler Owens. But I was really worried about Ben Roberts. He was exceptional. And if you're going to get more of that from somebody like him, you're going to be in really good shape, in the future. But sorry, anyway, continue with your thought.
Honestly, I think this is the 2nd straight week. I feel like, Level, your defense played good enough to win you the football game. I feel like most and we're conditioned to offense around here. We have been. It's just simply put, since 2000, we're used to being an offensive school. But you held one of the best offenses, or projected offenses, it's still early in the year, but one of the best projected offenses in the country, down to 31 points defensively. And because one of those was a pick six, obviously, and the other, and you gave up some short fields, the 4th down situation. So I thought your defense did well enough. You for the most part contained Bo Nix for the most part, especially in the first half and the 3rd quarter. You slowed the running game down enough to keep it manageable. I think it was another night where people get frustrated because you have opportunities in front of you and you just don't go grab those. It felt like Bo Nix, what Coach McGuire said I think both in the interview with you and the press conference, that we went and we lost the game. We're beating ourselves, I think was the quote he said. Was it more of that, or did you feel like Bo Nix went and kind of won the game for Oregon, or a combination of both?
Probably a little bit of both. I go back to like the one drive that Oregon had at the end of the game where, you know, they're basically driving down to kick the game-winning field goal.
Yeah.
And they do end up kicking one to go ahead of you. But I go back to like the penalty with Rashad Williams, way out of bounds. It gives them a free 15. And I guess one of the early season's disappointments, if you will, or things that I thought would be different is Miles Cole and Steve Linton have yet to be heard from this season. There's not really anything there. And I thought that would be better. I felt like at times Shough there wasn't anybody open, and he's looking and yet he's pressured. And I don't think you really did that much to Nix on the other side. I just thought your group up front, you know, and they keep talking about rush lanes and being a bit undisciplined and all that. It's not that it was terrible, but it's just like I never felt like he was pressured. You know, and then I think when he needed to make a few plays with his legs, he was able to do it. And I think one like kind of hidden number in that, like on the stat sheet last night, just kind of gives you an idea of where you struggle on offense versus a team like Oregon, which makes them so elite. Is you go look at yards after the catch.
Yeah.
Oregon had 317. Okay, these are yards that either Bo Nix is throwing guys open, or guys are just making plays because they're faster. There's some more juice. You had 93 yards after the catch. Far too often, you know, when you catch it, you're dropped. You know, and it's like so we got to go run another play and all that. Whereas Oregon's got some guys that, you know, they can make some things happen or more things happen. But that's a fairly lopsided number on things that, you know, but that just, you know, we've kind of talked about that. You miss a little speed and juice on offense at the skill spots. I think Shough is dropping back, and we talked about it on the broadcast quite a bit last night. He drops back, and it's like there's just nobody open, you know. And I think that's a bit of a problem as well. Big picture. This is why, like the Micah Hudson commitment, if you get it, is going to be massive, because he is one of these people that is got tons of juice and playmaking ability with the ball in his hands. You just got to get it to him. That's why that would be such a big get. But I just thought that was kind of a hidden storyline in this game as well.
Yeah. So we got a lot of questions from the audience. We'll get to some of those, a lot regarding quarterback play and that sort of thing. But the last couple of things that are big questions and question marks from the game are your two decisions that were pretty big decisions. The one is the going for it on fourth down. I know you kind of asked Coach about that last night, and then fourth down well into your own territory. And the other one is the chasing the 2-point conversion early on. Both of those things, if you get them, you look like a genius. You move on. We don't really even think twice about it today, but you sit here where both go against you, and they have a pretty big impact on the game. Both decisions do.
Yeah, and Joey said it after the game was over. I mean, this is what we looked at the book, the analytics, and we're again, it's one of these things where you either do this and follow these rules and the statistics, or you don't. I think it's real, because if you pick and choose, you're not really an analytics-based team.
Sure.
I'm sitting there going, kick it, like with the 2-point conversion. That's just the way I've always thought. And my thought is, and again, he goes, there's going to be people out there that said don't chase points and all that. That's old school. Because the way you always kind of been taught, or the way you think, is you don't ever go for 2 unless you just need it, unless you have to have it. And that there was a time when, boy, you certainly looked like you could have used that extra point on the scoreboard. It didn't necessarily come into play the way the game ended up. But there was a point there where you thought, because I mean, I guess the game would have been tied, had you kicked the extra point instead of
you wouldn't have been going back and forth with field goals late in the game.
the pick six, and all that. So that kind of, I don't know, changed the way the game was played. But he, again, you can criticize them for being analytics based or using the book, but this is what the book said. I don't know, what, but that's, and I think same with the 4th and 2, like, hey, down a distance, and again, you can choose to ignore that and say, no, my defense needs a rest, or I don't like the play call. We're not playing well. I've got a really elite punter, pin them, but I think they, again, it's tricky when you pick and choose when to use the deal versus when you don't, because at that point, you're not really, all the numbers at that point are skewed because you're not really following it. And so, but that's, I get the questioning of it. And I think he was asked about both of those things, and he understands that, but that's what comes with it. But if you're going to use it, you're going to use it. And unfortunately, you were kind of 0 for 2 in those situations.
And specifically towards the 2-point conversion, we have a question from Matt that asks, and this is from email. Y'all can email me the question, cwoodman@raymarcom.com. It says, shouldn't we have 3 or 4 plays that we're extremely confident in on 2-point conversions? It seems like both of the 2-point conversions this year, they've been running around like they're chickens with their heads cut off.
Well, I mean, you would like to, I think most coaches, and I'm sure Zach and Joey, they have a group of plays. It's almost like special plays, from just that point. And I think that both times they've been passes. That's still and I think you felt like, okay, QB run maybe out of the equation. You've done it so much. And maybe there was a look there that you could have gotten. I think traditionally running it on these guys was going to be a bit difficult. You did break off some runs there with in the open field with Taj Brooks, and so you elected to throw it, and they just they defended it. Wyoming did as well. They just kind of dropped a ton of guys in coverage as you rolled out. I think you were trying to hit Mason Tharp in the back of the end zone and Laramie. And then last night, I don't know who the primary read was, but I think they all have. They're going to have a variety of plays from that spot on the field, like from the 3-yard line, and you rep them, and they're specifically for that. But maybe you wish you would have called a different one there.
Yeah, I mean, you've had 2, and they haven't looked like things have gone like you've wanted.
Well, because they haven't worked.
First reads, yeah.
If you convert it,
but both of them he's broken the pocket on, and you haven't been able to find it immediately like you would hope. Okay, so we've had several questions, including my question from my brother again. Brandel gave us another one. Just asked, what's essentially grouping them all together? What's the threshold on making a change offensively when it comes to Tyler Shough, Baron Morton, all of that? What does it take to see any sort of change is what a lot of people are asking today. And is that a fair question?
I mean, I think when you lose, I think everything's fair. I mean, you start trying to figure out why. I mean, I get it. I feel like if Tyler doesn't play in that game against Oregon the way he played, you may have gotten blown out. I thought his legs, and Barron's not really built to do some of those kinds of things. And it's just I think with it, I just find it kind of humorous that Barron is the savior. Okay, let's just call it what it is on what a lot of people think and Will Hammond will be the next guy that when Barron is the starting quarterback, Will Hammond will be the next. We'll be getting questions about Will Hammond at some point. Or
who replaced Graham Harrell after the 2 pick sixes?
Chris Todd.
Thank you.
Todd.
And there was I don't know if it was We Want Todd or whatever the chants for. So many times the backup quarterback's the most popular guy on campus.
I know.
It's just how it works.
And so I look, Shough has earned this job. He was a primary reason. And if you suggest otherwise, you just, we're going to strongly disagree on why you won those last 4 games. last year and created
Absolutely.
a lot of momentum. And then I think with Barron, I think he's going to be really good. I really do. But I don't think he's better than Tyler. And I get people don't want to lose, at least at this stage. I think that people have this because, Barron, he started against Oklahoma State last year and he played really well. He gets dinged up at the end of the first half.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if he doesn't, maybe you win that game, but you didn't. He had big time numbers and all those things. He started against Baylor and played. He and everybody played poorly. He had the 3 interceptions, and your defense couldn't stop him that night. But it was just not a good situation. He started the TCU game, couldn't finish, kind of got dinged up. But that's what I guess I'm failing to grasp or understand, like what. And I hate getting these kids pitted against each other because I think that's not what. But to
What's
answer
the nature of the
question,
beast?
yeah, I don't understand what Barron has done to like deserve or to make people think like, well, he'll fix it all. And maybe it's just because you of the old results. I don't think. And we talked about these interceptions. I think. One of them on him, clearly. One of them a Hail Mary. The other one, he's pressured trying to make a play. Maybe he needs to eat it. So maybe you can say 2 of the 3 are absolutely on him. The fumble where he gets kind of sacked, I can't really put on him necessarily just because he was under pressure and he gets the ball knocked loose and all that. But and you're going to point to the turnovers on why you lost, and I think Joey kind of did as well, and lack of being able to turn them over because you just really never,
right.
Other than Malik Dunlap, there was really no sniff at an Oregon turnover at all in the game, other than you stop them on 4th down. But I don't think they're anywhere close to that pushing that button. I think that internally that wouldn't even be on the radar, yet. I think if you start out 0-5 or something, or an injury occurs, then maybe, yeah. But I just don't think you're anywhere near that conversation. We got the same kind of talks last week, and I just, and I thought there's a lot of things that Shough did well. There's a few plays that he would love to have had back, I'm sure, but
sure.
You ran for over 100 and 24-40, I think, for nearly 300, 3 touchdown passes, ran for 1. But, maybe it goes back to we're conditioned around here under offense and all that stuff. But, I just don't.
Sure.
I don't, again, I'm not condoning a few of the mistakes. I think, some of the stat line is a bit misleading on some, kind of, when that entered the last one, especially. The Hail Mary one, but I just don't think you're anywhere near that point. So that may not be what people want to hear or your brother wants to hear, but that's just me being completely transparent with what I know. Yeah.
No, and in fairness, he acknowledged, and everybody, I mean, he's a huge reason why you were in that game too. Tyler Shough goes and makes a ton of plays, and I think it's just that there's a big curiosity factor, I think, with Barron Morton, just wondering. And again, like you've pointed out plenty, Level, when you lose games, you pick at everything. You're trying to just figure out, how do we get back to winning? And this better be a week, and we'll look ahead to Tarleton State in a moment. This better be a week you go get right. I mean, Tarleton State's a pretty good FCS team, but this is still a week you better find a way to get a lot of backups in, because you're going to be able to take care of business early in this game and get a big lead. And I'm not saying that FCS teams can't beat FBS teams, but if this team is as talented as we know that Texas Tech is, this should be a game where you can kind of exhale a little bit after playing 2 pretty tough opponents in the first.
Well, and you got to be careful about that too.
I know you
that'll be
not overlook. I'm talking from a fan's perspective. I'm talking from a media or whatever. I definitely don't think that's the mindset in the locker room, but to kind of feel better about this football team as a fan, right? I mean, there's no reason you shouldn't be winning this game by 20 plus points.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I know. I mean, you'd like to think, certainly. And I think that based on the 0-2 start, it really is going to make that trip to Morgantown one of the biggest games that
yeah,
Joey's coached since he's been here.
I think
You've
you're right.
got the haven't been able to win on the road kind of storyline,
Which is something he acknowledged on his
after.
coach's show on
Yep.
Thursday. But
Yep.
I think that game really, there's some pressure on this team to really win your next three. Right? I mean, Houston went and
Well,
lost to Rice on
and you
Saturday
gotta, I
night.
mean, and that, yeah, you're getting way down the line there, but I agree. I think that if you a 2-0 start in conference play is a must,
Yeah,
and that's 3 weeks away from being able to accomplish those things,
sure.
one at a time and all that. But I think that based on where you're sitting at right now, as you like start to peek ahead a little bit, that trip to Morgantown is going to be massive.
It's huge. It is
Yep,
absolutely
it
huge.
really is.
So a few more questions from the audience, and then we'll wrap this up. Raider Matt from Twitter says, what is the thinking behind the underutilization of the running backs? So we had Brooks with 6 carries, but averaged 11 yards per carry last night. And then you didn't have
I think they felt like
Sorry.
Cameron Valdez dealing with a shoulder injury. I think they felt like if they got into a situation that they would use Nehemiah Martinez as kind of a backup running back, but I don't think he, obviously didn't get any carries. I think they felt like that in a traditional, that's why they went QB run, and it worked. All you're looking at is rushing yards, but I think if you would have felt like that gave you an advantage, then I think you would have gone that route. But you still got your rushing yards and were able to move the chains and all those things. But I think that in a traditional sense, that's where Oregon's strength was on defense. This is also why I think you took a lot of shots down the field, because you felt like this was an advantage you had. And I think it worked on many occasions, because I think the Oregon DBs panicked, and they're I think 3 PI penalties, which were just kind of blatant.
Absolutely.
And so I think that was a matchup scenario there. But I don't. You just look at rushing yards, and was that, because it was 1,000% better than. I mean, Tyler Shough has your longest run in the Joey McGuire era at 58 yards. I mean,
that was the biggest play of the year. It was that was surprising, but it was nice. Yeah. Here's another question. Jake asks, did Dunlap intercept that pass in the end zone?
Well, yes, and then no. I think that by the letter of the law, he has a foot down, he catches it all the way until he comes down. And what they're going to argue is, because the ball does move. I saw the replay multiple times after the game was over.
Yeah.
And it's called completing the catch. And if that ball moves, they're saying you didn't really have possession of it.
Yep.
And it does clearly move when he goes to the ground. It's not just a big time obvious, but the ball does move. So I could easily, I can understand why they called it the way that they did. And that, that would have kept Oregon from putting 3 on the board at the time.
Yeah.
They ended up, I think, kicking a field goal on that.
You would have still had the lead, because I believe that's where they kicked the field goal to make it 31-28. Or 31-30 at that point. So yeah, that particular one, the ball shifts just underneath him, and you got to complete it through the ground, is what they tell you. So what stinks is almost like having too many camera angles almost hurts you there. Because I think if you see 85% of that video, it looks like he makes the catch.
Clear cut. And we kind of felt that way for much of the on the broadcast, much of the time where they're reviewing it, and then you finally see
that last one. Yeah, it's almost like you wish one of the players was blocking that last angle, because I think they would have called it an interception if you don't see that at the very end. But it was the right call.
I will say what I did not understand is that it's a Pac-12 crew that I thought I had a rough night, because there's an official right there. He immediately says interception and touchback. I mean, he is clear as day right there. That's his way he's ruling it.
Yeah.
And then they come out and go, the call on the field is, they don't call it as incomplete or intercept or no interception. And I'm thinking, well, how how did you come to this when the official that's standing right there is calling an interception?
Exactly.
So you also have that working against you too, because it had to be conclusive and all those things. Whereas if the call was an interception on the field, then I think it's a bit different. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is one that's, I mean, that was, so that means, sorry, circling around. So that means that was a Pac-12 crew, meaning you will
believe
get
so.
Big 12 crew in Eugene next year, most likely.
It's usually the way those series are set up. Yes.
It's either you have the home crew or you go opposite. So, yeah, I think that's about it for our questions this week. Most of them are similar. We have a bunch of questions, but most are 2-point conversion, fourth down, why you go for it, Tyler Shough, this, that. So the majority of the questions are the same.
And you can, people can disagree on the Shough and Morton thing. I'm just answering it the way I would answer it. You can disagree on the being analytics based or whatever. And
I think people do on both fronts, but that's, I mean, you got a passionate fan base and people want to win, and that's the basis of it all. But you can't sit here and bash on the 2-point conversion of the fourth down, the analytics stuff, without acknowledging that it helped you in several games last year too. That the analytics stuff really helped you out. I mean, you obviously don't win the Texas game if you don't go for it on fourth down plenty last year. And so you have to stay consistent with it, or there's no way to really know whether it works or not. So
you maybe you wish you would have called. Obviously, you probably do, because they'd neither worked. But maybe you wish you would have called a different play in both scenarios.
Yeah.
I mean,
hindsight.
Hindsight. But that's
So
and I the 4th and 2, like, this is what was going through my mind. And obviously they hit the number. The book says, hey man, at this time in the game, with whatever the score is, and if you just need this many yards, hey man, odds are you're going to convert this. But I'm thinking at the time, and this obviously none of this factored in, I'm thinking, okay, the defense had been on the field a lot.
Yeah.
You're trying to, because I think we even said you need to, it'd be nice to put together a really long drive and eat up a clock and all that stuff. The defense was a bit gassed, but also thought, hey man, we're not here to pussyfoot around. Like, let's go win the game. Let's put it in our own hands. And so those were a couple of things that I was wondering if that was one of the thought process on the 4th and 2 go. I was definitely one of those other people on the 2-point conversion deal. I'm like, just kick it, man. Just like, and don't go for it until you just have to. And it was so much time left, and because it just screws the whole thing up, the rest of the way.
It does. Yeah.
So and it's a good play by Oregon to get the 2-point conversion too, by the way.
That's right. So, and they put pressure on you the rest of the way. I mean, that's where it started. It was them getting theirs. So we got just a tiny amount of time left here, Level. To the Tech fan out there that's really down, Coach McGuire did say, hey, goals are still all out in front of us. You haven't played a Big 12 game yet. Still have big goals to chase a Big 12 title. How do you view this team differently after the first 2 games? Or do you still think that this team can achieve goals of being in the top part of the Big 12?
Yeah, now it really is just all about the league race. I mean, that's all this thing is about now. I mean, I think that's clearly defined. I think there's maybe in the summer, there was people suggesting may have an outside shot at the playoff and all that stuff. And now it's just all about the league race.
Yeah.
I think that you've got to figure out ways to now win some of these games. And, Joe even said, hey, had somebody tell me last summer, when you have a year when you win all these close games, you're going to come back the next year and you're going to lose them all. And he was like, I don't believe in either way. I think you create it and you figure out ways to do it, but they've just got to figure out a way to get a win and then build off of it and then do it again and all those things. But I think what you still see, and I'm always big on this, it was against Wyoming, which is why I think that the game was as close as it was, and you still had a chance to win, even though you didn't play real well. Your margin for error was much bigger there.
Yep.
Against Oregon, your margin for error wasn't that big, although shockingly, it was much bigger than I would have thought because of all the turnovers and all these things, and yet you still are in a position to win this game, tie it, come back and tie it, whatever. You were in it instead of getting blown out. But that's you need to figure out how to create some momentum and then carry it instead of kind of giving it back. And that's what we've not been able to, in a basketball equivalent would be like, you need to figure out a way to go on a 10 to 12-0 run which flips the game. And then you instead of, hey, here's a little 6-0 run, and then the other team answers, those kinds of things, because I think it up 27-18 at that point, you have a chance to maybe, if you make a few plays there and maybe get another one on the board, but you just, not good enough to do that just yet. But I still think that they're going to be a handful all year. They need to get some guys back, especially on defense. I'm just not, and I think that the league, there's just nobody in the league that I think scares you. Obviously, everybody's talking about Texas right now.
Well, Level, rough first couple of weeks. I'm not going to guarantee anything, but I feel pretty good that the next time you and I do this, we're going to be talking about a win. So
I sure hope so.
If not, then we're going to burn this whole thing down.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we'll just wrap it up.
I appreciate it.
I would hope so. Yeah, you bet. Not fun to lose, man.
No.
And in front of a phenomenal crowd and atmosphere with a big time opponent in town. But you'll get some more cracks at it.
Kudos to the stripe out. I mean, I didn't know how well people would participate, but at least what I saw, it looked pretty amazing.
Pretty much flawless.
Yeah, good job by everybody. Wasn't too much green in the stadium, but overall
there was quite a bit. There was quite a bit. Those Oregon fans, but there's a lot of bandwagon there. A lot of people that maybe in this part of the world that wouldn't have gotten a chance to see. But Oregon plays. They actually have a home and home with finish up with you next year. Then they have actually a home and home with Baylor and Oklahoma State. The 2 years and the 4 years after that. So the Big 12 will be seeing these Ducks for the next. Five seasons at some level. Right. So after you finish up with them next year, I can't remember who goes first, but it's either Oklahoma State or Baylor. But there's like back-to-back home and homes on those times.
So we like to beat up on teams in purple. Tarleton's purple. So hopefully that comes this week. Level, appreciate the time, man. We'll hopefully have some happier times next week. We'll do it again then.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
That's Chris Level. I'm Chois Woodman. Been tuned in to the Ask Level podcast, brought to you by Double T 97.3. Y'all have a great week.
You've been listening to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3.